So this week's Parashat is Parashat Vayetze. I want to bring a avot that starts really in last week's Parashat and even earlier than that, in Val'era, and sort of tied into this week's Parashat. So in the birth of Yitzchak, we read when Sarah weans him, she nursed all the children of the princesses around. And Rashi brings it out that who would say that Sarah could nurse children? So Rashi over there says that what was going on is that people were saying no, that Sarah didn't conceive. In fact, she had just gathered up someone from the shuk, and this wasn't her child. So what did Hashem do? He did a miracle in order that Sarah could nurse all these children to show that, in fact, Yitzchak was hers. The beginning of last week's parasha says, Yitzchak ben Avraham holidit Yitzchak. And Rashi says something similar over there, that everyone was saying that it was not from Avraham that Sarah conceived, but rather from Avimelech. And what did Hashem do? Hashem made Yitzchak look exactly like Avraham in order to mitigate that particular concern or that accusation. Now, Vayetze points out on last week's parasha, when it says that it wasn't Avraham the father, rather Avimelech, it says that it was Leitzene Hador. It was the mockers, the scoffers, the cynics of the generation that were saying that. With regards to Parashat Vayetze, it doesn't say that the cynics of the generation were accusing Sarah of not conceiving, but she had rather gathered in Nasufi from the shuk. So why in last week's parasha they called the late Senad or the cynics, whereas in Vayetze they're not called that? So the Rav explained that the reason is that Avraham couldn't have been sterile because we know that he had Yishmael. So there was a certain lack of logic to the accusation. Like with regards to Sarah couldn't have conceived and she gathered in a child. Well, it's not nice, but it's very feasible. Here's a woman who's very well on in years, and she has a child. All of a sudden, she has a child. It's very feasible to say that, in fact, she didn't have a child, but rather she gathered one. She adopted one. With regards to Avram, say, Avram could never have children. Rather, he was the problem. Sarah could conceive, and she conceived from Avimelech. Well, the facts say otherwise. We know that Yishmael existed. Coming to our parsha, we see that when Rachel gives birth to Yosef, it says, Hasaf Hashem et chirpati. Hashem has gathered in my disgrace, my humiliation. So Rashi has one understanding of it, but the Seforno has an explanation that says that Hashem, up until now, it appeared that he had accepted the tefillot of my sister, but not had accepted my tefillot. Now that my tefillot have been accepted, so Asaf Hashem et chirpati, Hashem has gathered in my disgrace, I'm no longer humiliated. So the Yalkut Yosef, Rabbi Huda Ginsburg, also says well, what's the connection between the tefillah? So he bases this on a Rashi from Parashat Noach, where it says back in the ancient world, what would happen is that many times people would have two wives, and one was for procreation and was for beauty. And the one that was for beauty was fed something that would create them to be sterile, and the other one would be the mother of the children. And so that was the concern of Rachel, that people were saying, and the way that he uses this is, Leitzene Ador were saying, that the cynics of the generation were saying that Rachel was the wife for beauty and Leah was the wife for children. And that's what it's, that's what the Asaf Hashem et chirpati, that Rachel can prove that she is not the trophy wife, so to speak, but rather she has value as a matriarch to the families. What isn't clear is why are these called Leitzene Ador? Why are they not just, people were saying, this was the minhag, that you had those that were trophy wives and those that were the mothers. Why are they called Leitzene Ador? So perhaps one could suggest that the lack of logic in this particular case that makes those cynics was the fact that Yaakov worked 7 years for Rachel. He didn't work 7 years for someone to be a trophy wife. And if you'd seen the love and you'd seen the devotion and dedication that Yaakov poured into this relationship and the sacrifices he made, dafkat for Rachel, it wasn't for the pure materialism. It wasn't pure for the sexuality. It wasn't for the beauty. It wasn't for the trophy. It was to be able to create a family with her. And those who didn't see it, those are Leitzene Ador. The people who choose to ignore all the evidence at their hands and choose to nevertheless spread the gossip. And that's why it was the Leitzene Ador saying that Rachel was the trophy wife, but Leah was the real wife. Wishing you all Shabbat Shalom.